Good morning, everyone. This is Russell Rucker, and I'm here for another constitutional talk. And today I thought we'd go back to 1765. Now, I do recall some time back showing you discussing the Stamp Act, and this barrel does have the image of the Stamp Act on it. And I mean, really, that's where I want to go today. It is the Stamp Act and some of the events that followed the Stamp Act. So basically, we're involved in the French and Indian War. Britain is in debt on account of not just the French and Indian War, but their 7-year war, and they're trying to recoup costs. And the Stamp Act was one way to try to tax the colonies, because frankly, the colonies in America, what became the United States, were the richest of their colonies. And so that's where the money was to come. But there was a motion by Massachusetts Assembly and calling for a meeting to consult over the circumstances the colonies found themselves. And there were 27 men that were called to serve. Some of them you might know, like Eliot Dreyer, Christopher Gadsden, Thomas McGean, John Morton, James Otis. You know, some of these men had been important in attempting to overturn things. You know, they were men that had been members of the Sons of Liberty or otherwise elected. John Dickinson, for instance, he wrote letters to the editor, letters from a farmer in Pennsylvania, but he wouldn't. This is prior to him writing that. But there's also people here you've never heard of, probably, like William Bayer, Joseph Boston, Mr. Bauer, George Bryan, Leonard Lipspark, and lots of these people. But like Robert Livingston is a well-known person. So they had these 27 men, and there were two of them that did not attend. Jacob Caklock, for instance, he traveled there, but there's no record of him actually being at the meeting. And frankly, there's not any record of this meeting other than a few documents where notes were kept by individuals. Joseph Fox of Pennsylvania, he chose not to attend. So we get into the Stamp Act Congress, and that's what this is. It's sometimes referred to just as the first Congress. But it's an informal meeting. Virginia and Georgia governors prevented their attendees, so they weren't even there. New Hampshire was bogged down with a financial crisis at the time, and the Canadian provinces chose not to attend the meeting. There's also this interesting thing that the three surviving journals, they kind of contradict each other. They met in New York at Federal Hall. This would later become our first Capitol building. This is where President Washington was sworn in later. They met a little over 2 weeks, and they produced the Declaration of Rights and Grievances. Now, the Declaration of Rights and Grievances is an important document. The first 7 or 8 complaints go through actually thanking Britain for a number of things. You see, you have to understand that in the beginning of our founding, these people really weren't patriots as we see them. They were loyalists. They were loyal to the crown because, frankly, that's what, being the most loyal subject of King George wasn't an important idea. It was just an important way of being. They had businesses, they had plantations, they had no desire to blow the whole country up and try to do something different. They had concerns about their station in life, but they also had a king that was beginning to try to get money from them through taxation, and they weren't happy about the taxes. And so this is really what went on. So your rights and grievances first establish certain rights, and then they try to get some kind of resolve on how to do this, how to go about their meeting. It was ruled an illegal assembly. Governors were moving against him. The king was opposed to the meeting, and the rights and grievances was not well received. After this meeting, we have other meetings and occurrences, and we have meetings of the Middle States, and eventually we wind up sending uh, delegates to a Congress or Continental Congress, and they meet and try to hash out. And all these are steps to our independence. They're all they're all steps we take on our road to independence, to declaring independence, and then fighting the war and writing up articles of confederation. They always talked about they needed to confederate, which meant they need to unite themselves together for basically the purposes of defense. And they also wanted to get documents together to try to get help from European nations. Now, these were the three things they were really after once you get into the Continental Congress and you start working towards trying to govern yourselves. Because up to this point, when you're in the Stamp Act Congress, you're trying to discuss things with other colonies. But at the same time, you aren't trying to alienate the king. Because really, most of these people loved the king. They were in the colonies, they were getting fairly wealthy, and they were, enjoying their life. They didn't want to have a big to do with England, and they certainly didn't want to fight the strongest military on the planet. And I think that's important when you start talking about some of these meetings and events that occurred. You have to understand exactly where they were in the period of time. These men in 1760 were not the same men as they were in 1765, 1770, 1775, because all these events changed them. It changed them and forced them into a realization of what they actually had to do and the difficulty they had before us. They said that Washington would have to defend with the sword what they had agreed to do. This might be a little bit later, but this is really the whole idea here. Now, when we have the Stamp Act Congress, we don't have a General Washington. He's merely a colonel at this time. He hasn't been given duty to set up an army. We've got all kinds of things going on to that point. Things that happened in Boston, the Liberty Tree, the Sons of Liberty, the Loyal Nine, all these things that would occur were all steps on this road. And I think that's really when you talk about our founding, that's really what you have to understand. Is they weren't looking for a break. They were looking for a reconciliation. And when you look at the declarations of rights and grievances, that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to show their rights. And their rights they wanted were the rights of British subjects. So their Declaration of Rights and Grievances, where they're establishing rights that they had, that they believed they had as British subjects. And they were trying to list their grievances. And they were trying to get the king's attention, and they were trying to get some representation out of Parliament. I hope that helps better understand some of the issues we have. And we'll catch you next time, next week, on the next Constitutional Talk. And folks, have a good day. Please subscribe, like me, pick up my books. My address is RussellJRucker.com. You can check out my books. I do have a game coming out in June too, so I want you to think about that. And look at our founders as people, not really true vital heroes, but they were people of their day trying to do the best they could for the people. Think about that. E pluribus unum. We'll see you later. Have a good day for now.